I stood in the corner of the party room, soft Christmas music playing in the background, and I saw her, my wife, slip into the office with her boss. Through the crack in the door, I saw their lips meet, their hands no longer keeping boundaries. My throat went dry. My fingers clenched around the beer bottle until I heard the glass creak. Lena, my wife of 10 years. Greg Harrison, CEO of Harrison & Company, her boss. And me, Jack Morgan, 36 years old, a carpenter and home renovator in Asheville. Father to Emily, our 8-year-old daughter, home right now with the babysitter. And the man watching his entire marriage collapse right in front of him. I didn't kick the door open. I didn't yell. I just stood there and knew everything was about to change. My name is Jack, and if you've ever been betrayed and still managed to stay calm, stay with me. I'm going to tell you how I gave it all back, with my own 2 hands. I didn't say a word on the drive home. The Christmas lights lining the neighborhood flickered like mockery. Cold wind slipped through the car's cracked window, but the real chill was inside my chest. I walked in, didn't turn on the lights. The house was quiet. Emily was already asleep. I sat on the couch, no phone, no TV, just darkness, and the ticking clock echoing like water dripping on stone. 3 hours passed. Then I heard the key in the door. Lena stepped in, hung up her coat. She was humming. "Jack, why are you sitting in the dark?" I looked at her. Lipstick slightly smeared, hair not as neat as when she left. "Headache," I said. "Party ended early?" "No, still going strong when I left. I told you not to wait up." She didn't even try to hide it. I could have confronted her right there. But instead, I stood up. "I'm going to bed." That night, lying beside the woman who had betrayed me, I didn't sleep. I started planning. I was in the workshop before the sun came up, my sanctuary. A detached garage I'd turned into a wood shop years ago, where the smell of sawdust and varnish usually calmed me. But that morning, it sharpened me. The sketch pad lay open, not for a client, not for a paycheck. This time, the design was mine. Clean lines, strong beams, foundation first. Exactly what I didn't have anymore. "Daddy?" I looked up. Emily stood at the door, rubbing her eyes, her hair in messy pigtails. She looked so much like her mother it hurt. "Hey, sweetheart," I smiled, softening. "What are you doing up so early?" She shrugged. "I heard you. What are you making?" I paused, looking down at my pencil. Then I said, "Some ideas I've been thinking about." "Can I help?" she asked, already reaching for the little apron I made her last Christmas. "Always," I said, lifting her onto the workbench. She didn't know it yet, but she wasn't just helping me sand a piece of wood. She was helping me rebuild everything. An hour passed. Emily was sanding a small panel, tongue sticking out, focused like an artist. I had almost forgotten Lena existed. Then I heard the familiar sound, her footsteps. She stood in the doorway, holding a mug of coffee, wearing that robe she always wore on Sunday mornings. But this time it felt out of place, like she didn't belong in that frame anymore. "There you two are," she said, smiling tightly. Breakfast is ready." 5 more minutes, Mom," Emily said. "I'm helping Daddy." Lena sighed. "Jack, she's getting sawdust all over her pajamas." "She's fine," I said, not looking up. "We're bonding. We can bond over pancakes. We're meeting my parents at 11, remember?" I had forgotten. Sunday brunch with her father, the man who always looked at me like I wasn't good enough, pretending everything was normal. Not today. "You go ahead," I said. "Tell them I'm finishing up an emergency job." Lena's eyes narrowed. "On a Sunday? What job?" I didn't hesitate. "The Hendersons," I said, using her own lie. "You know how important that account is." She flinched, only slightly, but I saw it. Lena stood there a moment longer, coffee in hand, waiting for me to fold, but I didn't. "Fine," she said, turning toward Emily. "Come on, sweetie, let's get cleaned up." "Do I have to?" Emily pouted. "Yes," Lena said, sharper than needed. "She's helping me," I said, steady. "Let her stay if she wants." "Jack, we're late." That was the end of it. Lena took Emily's hand and they walked out. No kiss goodbye, not even a glance. When the door closed, I stood still, quiet. The air felt clearer. Then I picked up my phone. The first call was to Brad Coleman, my friend at the bank, a guy who owed me a few favors. "Brad," I said, "I need to talk business." "On a Sunday?" he asked. "This serious?" "Dead serious. I'm opening a new account, maybe looking at a loan." "Finally going solo?" he asked. "Is Lena on board with this?" There was a pause. "This one's mine," I said. "She's got other priorities." Brad didn't press. He knew better. The next morning I met Tom Reynolds, an old contact in real estate. We stood in front of a forgotten house on the edge of Asheville. Weather-beaten porch, sagging roof, boarded windows. It looked like a place Hope had long abandoned. "You sure about this, Jack?" Tom asked, brushing snow off the handrail. "This place needs everything." "That's exactly why I want it," I said. He looked at me curious. "You planning to flip it?" "Eventually, but that's not why I'm here." I walked through the creaking doorway into the hollow frame of what used to be a home. The air smelled of old plaster and silence, but the bones were good. Thick wood beams, original trim still intact under years of neglect. "People see rot," I said. "I see structure, foundation, history." Tom raised an eyebrow. "Well, the bank's practically giving it away. Most folks don't want the headache." "Good," I replied. "I don't want most folks near it anyway." By noon, the paperwork was in motion. That night I sat in my truck outside the house, and for the first time in weeks, I felt steady, not happy, not healed, but in control. It didn't take long for Lena to find out. We were in the kitchen. Emily had just gone to bed. Lena stood by the sink, wine glass in hand. She swirled it once, then turned to me. "You bought a house?" I didn't look up from my coffee. "Yeah." She stepped closer. "You bought another house? Without telling me? Without even talking to me?" I set the mug down. "It's an investment. We can barely afford this mortgage, Jack." "I'll manage." "With what time? You're already working 60 hours a week." "I'll figure it out." Her voice rose. "So this is about you now? Your project? Your money? Your secret life?" I looked at her calmly. "Kind of like your Henderson project?" She froze. It was just a flicker, one breath too long. But I saw it. "You don't get to turn this around on me," she said, voice sharp. "I'm building a career while you're still hammering nails for a living." That one landed. Hard. But I didn't let it show. "If that's how you see me," I said quietly, "then maybe you never really knew me at all." That night, after Lena slammed the bedroom door, I stayed up. Didn't turn on the lights. Didn't touch the TV. Just opened the drawer in my office where we kept Riverside paperwork, permits, invoices, job files she brought home without thinking twice. I started flipping through them, slowly, and then I saw it. Duplicate invoices, same job, same materials, 2 different totals. One for the client, one for the supplier. The first said premium. The second said budget. My pulse didn't spike. I just took out my phone, snapped pictures, documented everything, put it back exactly the way I found it. Then I picked up the phone again. "Eric Daniels," he answered. "State Attorney General's office. Who's this?" "Jack Morgan," I said. "Long time." "Jack?" he laughed. "Been what, 5 years?" Closer to 7. What's this about? You in trouble? No, I said, but I think Greg Harrison might be. There was a pause. I'm listening, and I started talking. Eric went quiet after I finished. Then he said, "You're not the first person to mention Harrison and Company." That caught me off guard. We've had whispers, complaints, but nothing concrete. He's careful, keeps his hands clean, has friends in the county offices. I leaned back in my chair. So if someone had real evidence, photos, paperwork, names, then someone might finally crack this wide open, Eric said. Hypothetically. Of course, I said. Hypothetically. He lowered his voice. If you're serious, don't go to local authorities. You bring it straight to me. Understand? I nodded, even though he couldn't see it. Understood. And Jack, he added, if Harrison catches wind of this, he won't play fair. Watch your back. I hung up, sat there a while staring at nothing. This wasn't just about Lena anymore, not just about betrayal or pride. It was about something rotten, something that needed to be burned down so something better could be built in its place. I didn't sleep that night, just stared at the ceiling, thinking about everything I didn't want to believe, but already knew. By sunrise, I was making calls, quiet ones, to old colleagues, tradesmen, subcontractors, guys who'd worked for Harrison and Company. Some had left bitter, others just faded out. But when I brought up Greg's name, they all went quiet, like I'd said something dirty. Look, man, it's not worth getting involved, one guy muttered. I got kids, said another. But a few, just a few, had been waiting for this. You got docs? I asked. Yeah, said Nate, a framing contractor. Kept 'em, insurance, just in case. He sent over PDFs that night, material orders that didn't match the bids, safety sign-offs that looked copy-pasted, different job sites, same signature, Alan Reeves. It wasn't just bad bookkeeping. It was fraud, systemic, patterned, quiet, and no one had said a word, until now. I started building two things at once, a house and a case, and I wasn't about to let either fall apart. Days bled into nights. I worked my regular jobs during daylight, kitchens, decks, repairs. Then I'd head straight to the old house. It was falling apart, peeling walls, cracked floors, water damage that made your boots stick. Most people wouldn't touch it, but for me, it was peace, purpose. While I stripped rotted drywall, I replayed conversations. Which permits Lena had brought home? Which invoices didn't add up? Who signed what? How many corners had been cut? I kept a notebook in my tool belt, wrote down names, dates, patterns, snapped photos, saved files, everything organized, everything clean, no anger, just precision. Greg Harrison was loud in public, charity events, local press, but in the background, he was bleeding people dry. And Lena? She wasn't just sleeping with him. She was part of the paperwork. Maybe she didn't start the scam, but she knew, and she stayed. The truth burned. But it also cleared the way. One nail at a time, one page at a time. I was rebuilding something that would outlast every lie they told. We were barely speaking by then. Meals were eaten in silence. Conversations, if they happened, were transactional. Groceries, bills, Emily's school schedule. Then one Thursday evening, as she zipped up a small suitcase, Lena said, "There's a 3-day conference in Louisville. Greg says it's important for the Henderson project." She didn't look at me when she said his name. Didn't even flinch. I didn't ask who else was going. Didn't ask which hotel. Didn't ask anything. I just said, "I'm sure it is." Her hand paused on the zipper. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Exactly what I said," I replied, still writing in my notebook. Send my regards to your boss." She zipped it shut hard. "I don't know what's gotten into you lately, but I don't like it." "Funny," I said without looking up. "I was thinking the same about you." She left 10 minutes later. Emily and I had frozen pizza that night. She asked if we could camp in the old house again this weekend. I told her yes, and while she slept I made one more call. This time, to the inspector whose signature kept showing up on every fraudulent permit. Don Whitaker. I found Don Whitaker's number through a drywall guy I'd helped years ago. Called him late, just past 9 p.m. He picked up on the second ring. "This is Don." "Mr. Whitaker," I said. "My name's Jack Morgan. I'm a contractor here in Asheville." Long pause. "Don't think I know you." "No reason you should," I said. "But I know your name. Specifically, I know it appears on every job permit tied to Harrison and Company, even the ones where the materials don't match the orders." Silence. Then sharp. "I don't know what you're implying, but..." "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts, and I've got copies, in multiple places." His voice lowered. "Is this some kind of shakedown?" "No," I said. "I don't want your money. I want the truth." "I'm hanging up. Before you do, you should know this. If anything happens to me, the files go straight to the state attorney general, not the local office, not your buddies, the state." Silence again. Longer this time, then. "Meet me, Bennett's Grill, tomorrow, 7 a.m. Come alone." I was planning to. Bennett's Grill was quiet at 7 a.m. Coffee machines humming, a waitress refilling sugar jars. Don was already there, corner booth, hunched over a chipped mug. He looked older than I expected. Late 50s, worn down, eyes like he hadn't slept in weeks. He didn't look like a crook. He looked like a man drowning. I slid into the booth, said nothing. "I've been doing this too long," he muttered, not looking at me. 15 years of cutting corners. Started small, deadlines, minor stuff, but with Harrison, it escalated, fast. I stayed quiet. Let him talk. Falsified permits, safety reports that never happened, swapping out premium for budget, every job, and your wife, Lena? He finally looked at me. "She handles the paperwork, right?" I nodded once. "Then she knows. Maybe not everything, but enough. Greg doesn't keep people who won't play along." It hit me harder than I expected, hearing it out loud, from someone who wasn't angry, just tired. "I've got names," he said, sliding a thumb drive across the table. "Dates, projects, more than enough." "You willing to testify?" He shook his head, fast. "Not yet, but if it all burns down, I want to be on the right side of the fire." I drove home with the thumb drive in my coat pocket, didn't turn on the radio, didn't stop for coffee. The streets were quiet, still wet from last night's rain, but my head was loud. Don Whitaker had given me more than I expected. Scans of forged reports, email threads, signed approvals. Not just Greg's signature, not just Lena's, other names, other inspectors, subcontractors, even city employees. I sat in my truck outside the old house for nearly an hour. Didn't even realize I was gripping the steering wheel that tight until my fingers started to cramp. This wasn't just about me anymore. Not just about a marriage, not even just about revenge. This was corruption, real, widespread. And I was sitting on top of a fuse. The smart move would be to walk away, hand it all to the state, let them run with it. But I couldn't, because I hadn't built anything yet. Not enough to stand on, not enough to take Emily with me when everything fell apart. So I went inside, fired up my laptop, and started backing up every file 3 times over. If Greg was going down, I was going to make damn sure he took the whole rotten system with him. The next few weeks, I barely came home. I showed up for my day jobs, smiled when I had to, kept quiet when I didn't. Then I went straight to the house. My house. No music, No podcasts. Just the sound of nails biting wood and sawdust hitting the floor. I ripped out old piping with my bare hands, replaced rotted subfloors board by board, hung drywall by flashlight when the power cut out, slept on a cot in the back room some nights, jacket for a pillow. The soreness in my arms felt better than the ache in my chest. Every strike of the hammer, every cut of the blade, it gave shape to something, control, direction, proof that I could still build something honest with my own hands. Lena stopped asking where I was going. I think she liked not having to lie to me anymore. Emily came by once or twice, painted a corner of the living room with her tiny roller. She said it looked like a castle no one lived in yet. She wasn't wrong. But every day it looked a little more like home and a little less like ruin. Word started to get around. Not about the case, not yet, but about the house, the work I was doing, the way I was doing it. No shortcuts, no cheap patch jobs, every board fitted by hand, every molding restored, not replaced. One Saturday, Nick Walker, an old buddy from trade school, pulled up in his truck. "Got some time," he said, grabbing his toolbox. "You need help with the plumbing?" "I can't pay much," I told him. "Don't need much. Just build my wife those custom cabinets you promised 4 years ago." We shook on it. No more words needed. A few days later, Liam dropped off leftover tile from another job. "Thought you might need this," and I had an excuse to get out of drywall hell for a day. They didn't ask why I was really doing this, didn't poke around about Lena or Greg or what I knew, but they stayed late, shared beers on the porch after dark, told jokes, filled the silence. The kind of men who understood that sometimes you don't fix pain by talking about it. You fix it by building something that won't fall down. It was late, close to midnight. Liam and I sat on overturned paint buckets, sipping cheap beer in the half-finished kitchen. Drywall dust still floated in the air like smoke. The silence between us had stretched long and easy. Then he said it. "You good, man? Really?" I didn't answer right away. I looked down at my hands, blistered, raw, calloused in a way they hadn't been in years. Then I told him. Everything. What I saw at the Christmas party. The lies, the files, the fraud, Greg Harrison, Lena, all of it. Liam didn't interrupt, didn't flinch. When I finished, he leaned back, blew out a breath. "That son of a bitch," he said quietly. "Want me to help you break his jaw?" I laughed, the first real laugh in weeks. "Tempting," I said, "but I've got something better." He raised an eyebrow. "Yeah? What's that?" "Living well," I said, "and maybe a little bit of justice on the side." He nodded slowly. "You sure you're ready for what comes with that?" I looked him dead in the eye. "I'm already in it." After that night with Liam, I didn't waste time. I started reaching out to the others, quietly, carefully. Subcontractors, foremen, inspectors, guys who'd been pushed out, underpaid, or just sick of looking the other way. Some were hesitant at first. They'd been burned, intimidated, told to shut up or get out. But once they realized I wasn't bluffing, that I wasn't looking for a fight, just the truth, they started talking and handing things over. Old emails, photos, job site memos, invoices with inflated numbers, signed approvals for inspections that never took place, and over again, one name at the center, Greg Harrison. He didn't do the dirty work himself. He used people, hid behind paperwork, but the pattern was clear. I cataloged everything, cross-referenced job sites, highlighted recurring signatures, created a file so clean even a rookie prosecutor could follow the trail. Every night I added a little more. Every nail I drove into the Victorian's frame felt like a nail in Greg's coffin. I wasn't just building a case anymore. I was building a reckoning. By March, the Victorian had started to look like a home again. Fresh drywall, new wiring. The floors, once warped and buckled, now ran smooth under bare feet. Even the front porch, once sagging, stood proud again. Neighbors began to slow their cars just to look. Strangers knocked, asking what I planned to do with it. But back at my actual house, the one Lena and I still technically shared, silence had taken over. We ate dinner in separate rooms. She worked late more often, stopped pretending to be tired. Her excuses were more polished. So was her makeup. One Thursday night, she packed a bag and said, 3-day conference in Louisville. Greg says it's crucial. I didn't answer. She looked at me like I was supposed to fight, like silence made me guilty. Instead, I just said, give him my best. Her hand paused on the zipper. I don't know what's gotten into you lately. Probably the same thing that got into you, I said without looking up. She left without another word. I stood at the window as her taillights disappeared. Then I turned back to the documents on my desk. The house was healing. And the rot? I was cutting that out, one signature at a time. The name kept coming up. Don Whitaker. Permit approvals, inspection logs, material clearance. His signature sat on every corner Greg had cut. He wasn't just part of the system. He was the system. So I called him again. This time, no pleasantries. Don, we need to meet. He sighed. I already gave you the drive. You gave me breadcrumbs. I need the whole map. Pause. Look, I've got a grandson, he said finally. He and his wife just bought their first home, built by Harrison and Company. I let the silence do the talking. He went on, slower now. Every time I visit, I wonder what's behind those walls, what might fail when they have a kid running through the hallway. His voice cracked just once. I can't carry it anymore, he said. You don't have to, I told him. Give me everything. Names, timelines, what you signed and why. Let me take it the rest of the way. Another long pause, then, tomorrow, same diner, 7. Click. No threats, no promises, just guilt. And the sound of a man finally choosing to stop hiding. Don was already at the diner when I walked in. Same booth, same coffee. But this time, he didn't look uncertain. He looked ready. No small talk, no menu. He slid a worn notebook across the table, pages bulging with copies, clippings, notes in tight handwriting. I've been doing this for 15 years, he said. Not just for Harrison, 6 companies. But Greg, he's the worst of them. He took a sip of coffee, hand trembling just enough to notice. He keeps pushing, wants to cut deeper, hide more, risk bigger, because he's never paid for any of it. And Lena? I asked. He looked up, eyebrows raised. Your wife works for Greg? She's his assistant, handles the documents. Don leaned back, exhaled. Then yeah, she knows. Maybe not everything, but enough. There it was, the confirmation I thought would wreck me. Instead, it cleared the last bit of doubt. What changed? I asked. He didn't hesitate. My grandson. I saw him crawling across the floor last weekend, and I wondered if the ceiling above his crib would hold. He looked me in the eye. I want this to end, and I want to help you end it. I nodded, slowly, and for the first time, I felt it. Not just the anger, not just the plan, but justice, finally taking shape. By the time I left the diner, the notebook and drive were tucked in my truck's glove box. I didn't rush. I drove to a quiet parking lot near the courthouse, sat there for a few minutes, staring at the dashboard. Then I called Eric Daniels at the Attorney General's office. You got something for me? He asked. I've got everything. We met later that day, Neutral ground, no records, no signatures yet. I handed him the folder and the drive. Eric opened it, flipped through a few pages, eyes narrowing. Jesus, he muttered. This is cleaner than most internal audits. I didn't smile. Don Whitaker's on the edge. He's not ready to testify, but he'll confirm what's in there if it comes down to it. Eric closed the folder. I'll escalate this, quietly, state level only. We don't trust local channels anymore. Smart, I said. You realize, he added, if this starts moving, Harrison will feel it, and when he does, he'll come looking. I nodded. I'm counting on it. Because now I wasn't just Jack Morgan, the guy whose wife cheated on him. I was the man holding the matchbox over the empire Greg Harrison built on lies. And I was ready to strike. I knew Greg would feel it. I just didn't think it would happen so fast. 4 days after I handed the file to Eric, I pulled up to the Victorian early in the morning, sun barely rising, tools still locked up, and the front door was swinging open. I knew right then. The lock had been busted. The trim I'd spent hours carving, splintered, drywall smashed, windows shattered from the inside. They'd trashed it, top to bottom, every cabinet ripped out. Paint poured across the floor like blood. My cot slashed down the middle. This wasn't random. This was personal. This was a warning. I stood in the wreckage and felt nothing. Not rage, not fear. Just cold, steady clarity. I called the police, filed a report, then called Eric. They know, I told him. He didn't sound surprised. They're pushing back, and I'm pushing forward. That afternoon I installed cameras, inside and out, upgraded the locks, reinforced the doors, then I made 2 more calls. To a pair of off-duty deputies I trusted. They agreed to guard the site on rotating shifts. It ate into my savings, but I wasn't building this house for profit anymore. I was building it for war. The vandalism spread fast. Small town like Asheville, you don't need the internet to go viral. Word of mouth moves faster than fiber. By the end of the day, half the tradesmen I knew had heard about what happened. Some stopped by just to see it with their own eyes. Liam showed up first. He didn't say a word, just walked through the wreckage, jaw tight. Then he turned to me and said, "Let's put it back. Better this time." Nick brought plumbing supplies he didn't charge me for. Dale from the electrical crew offered to rewire the place. Free labor if I bought materials. Guys I hadn't seen in years pulled up in rusted pickups, tool belts already strapped on, not for profit, not for credit, but because they were tired of being afraid of Greg Harrison. Tired of being told to shut up and take it. By the end of the week, the Victorian looked better than it ever had. Faster, cleaner, stronger. Greg thought he was sending a message when he tore it apart. He did. It just wasn't the message he intended, because now I wasn't building it alone, and he wasn't fighting just me anymore. It was a Thursday evening when she showed up. The house was quiet. Golden hour light poured through the new windows. Fresh trim, polished floors, new banisters. I was in the master bedroom, measuring for crown molding, when I heard the front door creak. I grabbed a hammer, just in case. Then I saw her, Lena, standing in the hallway, one hand grazing the wall like it meant something to her. "This is where you've been disappearing to," she said softly. I had to ask around town to even find it. I didn't move, just watched her. She looked good, controlled, but her eyes gave her away. There was something brittle behind them, something cracking. "I wanted to see it," she said. "See what was more important than coming home." I gestured around the room. "You're looking at it." She walked slowly, hand trailing the new railing I'd built myself. "It's beautiful," she whispered. I forgot how talented you are. Thanks. I kept my voice flat. Why are you really here, Lena? She turned to face me, eyes full of something, regret or calculation, maybe both. Greg proposed. The words landed like cold steel. I didn't flinch. Congratulations. She stared at me for a long moment. I haven't given him an answer yet, she said. I nodded, not taking the bait. That's between you and Greg. Her lips parted, a flicker of frustration crossing her face. It wasn't like you think, she said, stepping closer. It just happened. No, I said calmly. It didn't just happen. You made choices. Hundreds of little ones. She blinked. Like buying this house without telling me? She snapped. Starting a whole business behind my back? I almost laughed. I'm not sleeping with this house, Lena. I'm rebuilding something real. A future. One I can actually trust. Her eyes sharpened. So that's it? 10 years just like that? I'm not the one who gave up, I said quietly. You did, the night you walked into that office. She stepped closer, too close. I could smell that perfume, expensive, not hers. Probably Greg's gift. We could start over, she whispered. I could tell him no. We could try again. For Emily. For a second I felt it. The ghost of old memories, family dinners, laughter, the weight of our daughter's smile. But then I remembered the lies, the silence. The lipstick at 2 a.m. I shook my head. No, I said, I'm not your backup plan. Her face changed, just a flicker. But I saw it, the fear behind her eyes. You'll regret this, she said, her voice low, sharp. When I'm Mrs. Greg Harrison, living in a lakefront home while you're still dragging sawdust into your truck. I nodded slowly. Better honest sawdust than dishonest marble, she scoffed. You sound righteous now, but you're not clean either. You've been keeping secrets. I stepped forward, voice even. Does Greg know about the state investigation yet? Her eyes froze. What investigation? She asked, barely a whisper. The one into Harrison and Co., fraud, forged permits, substituted materials, cooked books. She shook her head, backing away. You're lying. I didn't move. No, Lena, I'm just not pretending anymore. You wouldn't, she said, her voice trembling. You wouldn't ruin everything. I didn't have to, I said. He did that himself, and you helped him. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Go home, I told her. And if you're still thinking about that engagement, you might want to talk to a lawyer first. I turned back to my tools. She left without another word, and the house was silent again, except for the sound of something crumbling behind her. 2 days later, I was having lunch with Tyler, an old friend, now a county inspector. We were talking shop, nothing serious, until the room went still. I didn't need to look. I knew that silence. Greg Harrison had walked into Bennett's Grill. I looked up, slow and steady. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes sunken, still wore that smug look, but it didn't land the same way anymore. He made a straight line for our table. Matthews, he said, voice tight, we need to talk. Tyler started to rise. I put a hand on his arm. It's fine, I said. This was bound to happen. Greg pulled out a chair without asking, sat down hard. I don't know what game you think you're playing, he hissed. But it ends now. I sipped my coffee. Calm. Funny. I was about to say the same thing. I built this town, he snapped. I've got friends you can't even imagine. I leaned forward just enough. Is that why you sent someone to trash my site? Or was that just a personal touch? His jaw clenched. Eyes flickered. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do, I said softly. Just like you know about the investigation. Just like you know your empire's falling apart. He grabbed my shirt, yanked me forward. "You son of a—" I didn't flinch. "Go ahead. Hit me. Add assault to the list." He froze, the whole diner watching. Then he let go, stood, and growled, "This isn't over." "No," I said, adjusting my collar. "It's just getting started." It started with an article. Front page of the Asheville Gazette. State launches fraud probe into Harrison and Co. I didn't leak it. Didn't need to. Greg had made too many enemies. All it took was one of them to light the match. Within days, state inspectors swarmed half a dozen job sites. Contractors were questioned. Paper trails dug up. Turns out, the permits were just the beginning. There were bribes, fake accounts, tax irregularities. Even the IRS wanted a seat at the table. I watched it all from the porch of the Victorian, cup of black coffee in hand, new trim drying in the sun. Then came the knock at my door. Not the police. Lena. She looked pale, hollow, held up the paper without a word. "They came to the office," she whispered. "Took everything. Computers, files, even me." I didn't invite her in. "What did you tell them?" I asked. "That I didn't know. That I was just following orders." "Did you?" I said. She didn't answer. Just stood there, staring past me at the house she once mocked. "You knew," I said, voice low. "Maybe not everything, but enough." She closed her eyes, and for once didn't deny it. A week later, the last coat of paint dried in the upstairs hallway. The floors had been sealed. The fixtures gleamed. Every nail, every tile, every inch of wood, I knew it by hand, by heart. The Victorian was done. I walked from room to room that evening. No music, no distractions, just my footsteps echoing softly through what used to be ruin. Sunset poured through the front windows, casting gold across the walls. It didn't feel like a job anymore. It felt like truth. Meanwhile, Lena's world was unraveling. Greg had been indicted. Fraud, conspiracy, tax evasion. They hauled him out of the office in cuffs. News vans lined the street like vultures. Lena lost her job the same day. Greg's attorney named her in the press, called her responsible for document processing. I didn't feel vindictive. I didn't feel anything at all. We crossed paths once, briefly, at the grocery store. She looked thinner, tired, said, "This isn't how I thought it would go." I just nodded, because it was. For her, for Greg, for everything built on shortcuts and silence. But me? I had a house. I had a name people respected again. And soon, I'd have a buyer. I wasn't rushing to sell. Didn't list it on the market. Didn't post pictures online. I just let the work speak. And eventually it did. One afternoon, a black luxury sedan pulled up out front. The man who stepped out wore polished boots and a blazer that probably cost more than my first truck. "Jack Morgan?" he asked, extending a hand. "Name's Charles Whitmore. I hear you're the one who brought this place back from the dead." I gave him the tour, room by room. Didn't talk it up, just told the truth. When we finished, he stood on the porch, looking out across the neighborhood. Then he turned to me and said, "I'm restoring a dozen homes on the old Westbrook estate. Historic properties, real work, and I need someone who won't cut corners." He handed me his card. "I've seen a lot of builds," he said. "But this is something else." That night I sat alone in the finished living room. Same spot where broken glass once crunched beneath my boots. Now it smelled like fresh pine and clean paint. I didn't toast, didn't celebrate. I just sat in the quiet and let the weight lift, piece by piece. I packed in silence. Didn't need much. Just tools, documents, a few things for Emily, Everything else could stay or be sold. The Victorian was under contract, twice what I'd put into it. Enough to buy something smaller, closer to Emily's school. Enough to start again. Right. That night, Lena was waiting at the house when I got home. Emily was at a friend's sleepover. The timing wasn't a coincidence. "You're moving out," she said, not a question. "I am." "To go play house with your new girlfriend?" "She's not the reason," I said. "You are." Her voice cracked. "You've been planning this the whole time." "No," I said quietly. "I was surviving. Then I started rebuilding. And somewhere along the way, I realized I didn't need you to come with me." She stepped closer. "You can't just take Emily." "I'm not taking her, but I'm not leaving her either. We'll figure out a schedule." She looked away, blinking fast. "What about us?" I looked her in the eye. "There is no us, Lena. Not anymore. You ended that long before I started over." She didn't speak again, and I didn't offer comfort. Some endings deserve silence. The buyer signed the papers on a sunny Friday afternoon. Young couple from out of state. They walked through the house like it was sacred, touching walls I'd sanded, admiring windows I'd restored by hand. "I can't believe how solid this place feels," the husband said. I smiled. "It should. It's built on truth now." When they drove off, keys in hand, I stood on the porch one last time. Same spot where I'd once watched Lena walk away, where I'd stared into nothing, wondering if I'd lost it all. Now, I felt light. Not fixed, not healed overnight, but forward. I used the profit to buy a modest house near Emily's school. 3 bedrooms, quiet street, a yard big enough for a garden. Turned the garage into an office for my new company, Morgan Restoration. 2 guys I trusted came on full time. Phones started ringing. People wanted work done the old-fashioned way. No shortcuts, no lies. Some even came because they knew the story, not the gossip, the truth. And I was finally ready to tell it. Not for revenge, for legacy. Her name was Claire Bennett, interior designer on the Whitmore project. Sharp eye, steady hands. Didn't talk just to fill silence. I liked that. We worked side by side for weeks, me with the wood, her with the light. She asked questions but never pried, not even when people whispered about me, about Lena, about Greg. One evening we stayed late at the job site. She was arranging fabric swatches. I was carving trim. She looked up and said, "You ever think about building something just for yourself?" I paused. I thought I was. She smiled. "No. I mean for you. Not to prove something. Not to fight back. Just because it brings you peace." I didn't answer, but I thought about it for days. We started grabbing coffee after site visits. Then dinner. No expectations. No pretending. Just quiet company. She didn't try to fix me. Didn't need me to save her. And in that space between us, where no one was performing or apologizing, something real began to grow, not as a replacement, as a beginning. It was past midnight when the phone rang. Emily was asleep. Claire had gone home hours ago. I almost didn't answer, but the number was familiar. "Jack," her voice cracked on my name. I didn't know who else to call. "Lena." I could hear the whine in her voice, the tears. "I made a mistake," she whispered. "I thought Greg loved me. He said we'd start a new life." She sniffled. "But the minute things went bad, he pinned everything on me. His lawyer told the press I was the fraud." I stayed quiet. "You believe me, don't you?" she asked, voice hopeful, needy. "I wasn't trying to hurt you. I got caught up." She paused. "I miss us, Jack. I miss what we had. We could try again. For Emily. I can change." I let the silence stretch, let the words land. Then I said, calm and clear, "You don't miss me. You miss who I was when you still had control." She sobbed. "Lena, I forgave you a long time ago, but I'm not going back. You'd let me go to jail? I didn't put you there. Your choices did, just like mine brought me here." She didn't speak again, and I didn't say goodbye. I just ended the call and went back to sleep. 6 months after Greg's arrest, the county made an announcement. They were launching a full audit of every Harrison and Company project from the last decade. Too many homes with code violations, too many corners cut. People were scared, families with kids, elderly couples who thought their dream homes were safe. The county partnered with the state to make things right. Funding would come from Greg's seized assets, but they needed hands, real ones. That's when I got the call. "Mr. Morgan," the official said, "your name came up more than once. Clients speak highly of you. Inspectors do too. They weren't just asking me to build. They were asking me to help undo the rot Greg had buried across this town." I didn't hesitate. "I'll do it," I said, "but I do it my way. No shortcuts, no politics." She smiled through the phone. "That's exactly why we called you." By the end of the week, Morgan Restoration was one of 5 firms selected. We weren't just rebuilding houses anymore. We were rebuilding trust. And this time, we were building it to last. The first crew showed up on a rainy Monday morning. Young, green, some barely out of trade school, some just looking for a second chance. They called me sir. Weren't sure how to talk to me at first, but I wasn't there to bark orders. I was there to teach them what no one taught Greg, not just how to install crown molding, but how to check it twice, not just how to lay foundation, but how to stand on it with pride. I told them, good work doesn't hide, it holds. One kid, Marcus, watched everything I did. Quiet, focused. He reminded me of myself at 20 before the mistakes. One day he asked, "Why do you care so much? It's just drywall." I looked him in the eye. It's not just drywall when someone's baby sleeps beneath it. It's not just nails when a storm's coming. You want to build things that stand long after you're gone. He nodded, didn't say anything. But the next morning, he was first on site, with his tape measure already in hand. That's when I knew. I wasn't just rebuilding homes. I was passing something on. It was a Saturday. No job sites, no meetings, just us. Emily was in the backyard, hair tied up, overalls stained with paint. We were building a birdhouse, nothing fancy, just scrap wood, small nails, her careful hands. "Why do birds need houses?" she asked, holding a piece steady while I hammered. I smiled. "Same reason we do. A place to be safe. A place to come back to." She nodded like it made perfect sense. The sun was warm. Claire brought lemonade outside, kissed the top of Emily's head, and for a moment, the world was still. Not quiet because something was missing. Quiet because everything was right. I looked at my daughter, strong, thoughtful, innocent in all the best ways. She'd seen things no child should, heard anger through walls, watched her family come apart. But now she had stability, structure. Love that didn't have to shout to be real. She looked up at me. "Can we paint it yellow, Daddy?" "Of course," I said. "Anything you want." Because we weren't patching over the past anymore. We were building forward, together. People always ask me, was it worth it? The silence, the heartbreak, the nights I laid on a cot in that dusty Victorian, hands bleeding, chest hollow. Yes, every nail, every truth, every moment I chose not to fight fire with fire, but with purpose. I didn't burn Greg's world down. He lit the match himself. I just refused to put it out for him. Lena? She didn't end up in prison. She got probation, community service, and a long, cold look at who she'd become. And me? I built a company, a reputation, a home. More importantly, I built peace. For my daughter, for myself, and for every family who'd once trusted people like Greg. This isn't a story about betrayal. It's a story about what you do after. You don't have to be the loudest or the angriest. You just have to keep building honestly, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts, because eventually people notice, and when they do, you won't need revenge. You'll already have everything that matters.